We're now in our citizen comment period. We have one to sign up, Chuck Sue.
Thank you.
Last night was the 9th resolution that was passed by local governing bodies. There's been 0 resolutions to fail. On June 30th, there will be a group of 171 businesses that are going to go up to Raleigh, and they're going to ask the governor to take a step back from the contract between NCDOT and I-77 Mobility Partners, their parent company being Centra. Centra has a checkered past. We've all kind of come, tried to explain, try to get some sympathy from those of you who have the ability to do something to stop this. We've been told that it's going to cost us $100 million. Last night, we were told up to $100 million. We've been told that it was going to be $140 million, what I would consider bribe money, but what they would call incentive money that would come to this region. Jim Puckett questioned them. Commissioner Jim Puckett questioned them on that. And what we found out is that out of that $145 million, $75 million of it will be going to build bridges that will only have access from the toll road itself. That's not $145 million to do whatever we want with. That's $70 million to do whatever we want with. We have not been told the truth about this contract. A lot of you members have supported it in the past. A lot of you have come to understand that changes have been made, and maybe it's time to take a step back, look at general purpose lanes. And the other big issue I think that citizens are just completely outraged about is there's going to be 7 toll road projects in the state of North Carolina. 5 of them are going to be here in Mecklenburg County. And I know that there was a resolution Mr. Washington was considering bringing up at the last CRTPO meeting. I hope that you guys would bring up that resolution today and vote to stop this, terminate this contract. It's a bad deal, it's bad for business, and that's why there's 170 businesses going to Raleigh on June 30th. Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda is number 4, ethics awareness and conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of ethics?
Would you like me to read this?
Sure.
In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter at all.
Mr. Cook, I don't see anyone indicating they have a conflict of interest.
Just want to thank everyone for showing up a little early this evening. We had the workshop on the draft tip that was open to the public, as well as TCC and MPO members. Started at 4:30, and I thought we had a pretty good turnout. I hope you all had your questions answered. And we're able to look at some of the maps, but feel free to ask me questions on the tip as I go or at the end of this presentation. So an overview of what I intend to cover this evening on this topic. I want to provide a brief update on the bonus allocation project update. Talk briefly about the air quality conformity report. Move into the final STIP project schedule changes that we received from NCDOT, and I'll end with a proposed TIP adoption schedule. So as many of you are aware, the 77 Express Lane project reached financial close last month. And we held a meeting with CRTPO staff, NCDOT, and the communities that are expected to receive bonus allocation funds. And we got some guidance from the program development branch of NCDOT. One thing that we learned is there are 2 bonus allocation projects that are likely okay as incidental to highway projects for bonus allocation funding. That is the NC 150 bridge modification that is to be incorporated with the R2307 widening project of NC 150, linking Catawba and Iredell counties, and the Torrance Creek I-77 underpass in Huntersville. Another thing that we learned from program development at NCDOT is the engineering cannot be authorized until functional class changes have been approved by Federal Highway Administration. This affects two of our projects, the Potts Baby Sloan project in Davidson and Main Street upgrades in Huntersville. CRTPO staff is in the process of submitting these two projects for functional class modifications or modifications to our functional class maps to allow these projects to move forward. We also learned the Rock Hills to Statesville corridor study. We need to take a second look at the purpose and need for this study. The bonus allocation funds can't be spent on systems level planning. We need to use these funds to work towards an environmental document on this project. So that's something that staff and members of the subcommittee are looking at. Moving on to the air quality conformity document. We were hoping that we would have this air quality conformity document ready for the draft tip this evening. However, we were informed by the North Carolina DOT Transportation Planning Branch that this document will not be available until late June. But the MPO can approve the start of a public comment period or endorse the process this evening, and we can go back and ratify it as what was discussed. And this 30-day public comment period can start as soon as the document is posted on our website. So we anticipate that to occur here within the next week or so. I want to move into a series of project schedule changes that we received from program development prior to the release of the final STIP. The STIP has been approved by NCDOT as of earlier this month, but I just wanted to make you aware of these statewide mobility projects that have, most of them have accelerated in terms of the project schedule. The initial project schedule is shown here in blue for these projects, and then the final schedule is shown in orange for these statewide mobility projects. Moving on to the regional impact tier for Mecklenburg and Union counties. Again, the setup for this slide is similar with the dates that were initially posted in the draft tip in green and the revised right-of-way and construction dates for these regional projects in Mecklenburg and Union counties shown in orange. Moving into Division 10, these are division needs projects in Mecklenburg and Union counties, again, that have had schedule changes approved and are incorporated into the state's TIP. Again, the projects shown in red were the initial date in the draft TIP, and the modified date that is in the final STIP is in orange. This is Division 12. This is the Iredell County portion of CRTPO. Once again, the dates that were in the draft tip for right-of-way and construction are shown in red, and the dates in the final STIP are shown in orange. And here's the tentative schedule for we're moving forward with the TIP adoption process. Obviously, we just concluded our joint MPO, TCC, and public workshop. And then the request before you this evening is the approval of a 30-day public comment period on the TIP, the conformity determination report that's a draft, and the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan amendments that are associated with the draft TIP. As I said before, this public comment period is to be announced, but we anticipate it to begin sometime in late June as soon as we receive the draft air quality conformity document. There will be an allowance for public comment on the draft TIP, the 2040 MTP amendments, and the air quality conformity document at the July 15th MPO meeting if folks wish to sign up and speak on these documents. And then this body will consider adopting the final MTP amendments, the final TIP, and the final air quality conformity determination at the August 19th meeting. So the requested action for you this evening is to approve the start of a 30-day public comment period on the draft 2016 through 2025 Transportation Improvement Program, to approve the start of a public comment period on the amendments to the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and on the draft air quality conformity determination report. And I'll add that the TCC unanimously recommended this at their meeting earlier this month. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there questions, please?
I do. The public comment period, How are the public comments to be received? Are you going to have meetings, or are they supposed to send them into an email address? How are the public comments going to be solicited, and how are they going to be received?
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. There are several means to do that. You can email comments to info@crtpo.org. You can mail comments in or fax them, or you can make a comment at the July 15th MPO meeting. And all of that will be communicated. Once we have the air quality conformity document, we'll send out a press release with that information.
Okay, so there will be no public meetings, though, correct?
It's actually the July 15th MPO meeting. Folks can show up and provide comment then, and then we just had the joint TCC and MPO workshop that was open to the public as well.
Any other questions or comments? So we are asked to do those three things. Start to come in for these three items.
Even though we don't have a quorum, do you motion to do that? Or?
And I think we'll come back and ratify that at the July.
I'll make that motion. You want to do it individual or put them together?
Together.
Together, I'll make the motion we approve all.
Second.
Any discussion? So it will be even, it would be 30, even on the 15th, there would be time. It will not go out, it will not be public, started for a day or two.
It'll probably be, we're hoping maybe next week, Neil, I think we'll get the conformity report, so it could start as early as, say, a week from today.
So there will be time to comment up to July the 15th and beyond that.
And beyond, that's correct.
Right. So the action on those comments would not be until the August meeting.
Yes, that's the final date for action by this board.
I would just encourage us, I think we need to make a really sincere effort to be open and encourage people to make their comments now, as opposed to waiting until the period closes and then make their comments. And I think, a lot of times some of the problems come to be that during the right time for public input, window, and I think to avoid kind of repeating some of the problems that have been experienced in the past, is that we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can so that the public knows this is the time. If you have something to say, this is the time when you should say it. Otherwise, we're going to be back in the soup again.
Yeah, my question is, has there ever been a precedent of going out into the field or out into the region to hold them off-site, such as, workshops?
We've done that in the past. The direction that we got from this board a couple months ago, I guess it was, Neil, was that a public meeting really wasn't necessary, and I think that was due primarily because with the strategic transportation investments legislation that fundamentally changed the process. We now have a very data-driven process, and so there's really not the flexibility there once was in terms of changing projects around. Right. So based upon that, this board didn't feel that a formal meeting was necessary. I will say this, we maintain, I think, an excellent database of citizens and stakeholders, and we always send out our information to those groups. We always do a media release about the start of the comment period. We'll also do one about the July 15th meeting being a public meeting to voice comment on the tip as well.
Nobody.
I just agree with Ken. I just don't think you can get enough public, comment. And I'm not sure we're set up to draw all the ideas out there, at least. So, I'd love to see us reconsider that.
This isn't a criticism, so
No,
don't take it this way. But I mean, I've been a commissioner for 10 years and have been on different regional. It's not easy to understand how roads are funded. If somebody said, I want you to come, we're going to give you a big old sheet of paper, and you explain to us how money gets allocated to roads in Iredell County. it's not easy. And a lot of the critics that we have don't understand that exactly what you said is true. That there's money that can go in certain regions for certain types of projects, okay? And you can't take red money and paint it blue and spend it for a blue thing. And folks don't understand that. I'm not sure, but somehow we've got to bridge that gap, because there's definitely an impression that that it's the old way, which was, well, if you had enough political muscle, you could move money into your pet project. And by having these formulas, it was to remove, that, which I think is in the direction of good. That's a right thing. But I think the public perception is still that if we squeeze hard enough, we can do those things. And somehow in this public comment period, the fact that we said we're not going to do outreach because it's really formula driven. I'm afraid the only message that is going to be heard is we don't want to hear it. And we don't want to have that. In fact, I think it may be beneficial if possibly, and I'm not making a motion tonight, but we'll consider, is for the public input sessions to also be a bit of a public education session, so that folks not necessarily will become CRTPO experts, but at least they would have some idea of how this thing works. If there's a way to simplify at least one or two steps, I think that would go a long way to the public perception that we have, that I think in some ways is not correct. Okay?
Now, the comments that we're to receive from the public are basically on these 4 pieces. Will you bring those back up on the screen?
That is part of it, but really the comments that we're looking for are the materials that were in 270 and 271, those maps.
The whole.
And the complete list of projects in all modes that are identified in the TIP. And all that information is already on our CRTPO website on the TIP webpage. Anything that you saw in there tonight is on there, and the press release will clearly direct residents and citizens to check that page out and review the projects on those lists.
And then Bob, the list of people that the database that you have, that you send information, includes ourselves, representatives, our TCC representatives. And so I think it is, along with what you're saying, imperative that we take the responsibility also of informing our individual mayors and commissioners and council people that it's out there. And perhaps in the press release that could, or the note to the representatives and the TCC members, that could be emphasized.
Okay. Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'd just like to say, as far as my board is concerned, I think a lot of things should be given to the local opponents to the I-77 Express links, because they've probably done more to make my board members aware of this organization and its role than anyone else. That probably speaks partly to just a lack of interest on the part of my board, and perhaps my failure to, stick their noses in it and make sure they fully understand what we do. As you all know, on your own boards, you have an awful lot to cover and an awful lot to deal with. People tend to listen often more to members of the public than constituents than they do to one another. Just a comment.
Any other comments or questions? And the motion is to start the 30-day period, which will extend beyond our next meeting, which is July 3rd, the 15th, I'm sorry, excuse me. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Neil?
Thank you. So the prioritization 4.0 work group concluded with its final meeting on May 18th. So really the purpose of this presentation is to kind of close out some of the things that the work group has agreed to that will be placed into effect for prioritization 4.0. Really the biggest thing to update you on is the decision about the number of projects to remain in the P4.0 database. There are two issues there. There are projects that are proposed for restoring P4.0, and there are projects proposed for removal from the spot database. This is important to the MPO board as well as the TCC because there are projects identified on these lists that may no longer be needed that are going to be restored, and there are also projects identified for removal that may still be a priority, but we'll need to figure out how to resubmit a number of projects. And I'll close with the proposed schedule for prioritization in 4.0. So as far as the number of new project submittals going into P4.0, the work group made a recommendation to NCDOT that we keep the same number of project submittals for MPOs as P3.0. CRTPO will receive 20 new project submittals, and each NCDOT division will receive 7 new project submittals. This is slightly less than what the divisions had for P3.0. Additional projects can be added if the MPO and the division agree to remove additional projects. This is the one in, one out philosophy. And there's an unlimited amount of projects we can identify to remove to add new projects. So where this has come about as far as reducing the number of projects in the database is from the Strategic Planning Office of Transportation, or the SPOT office. There are currently 1,700 projects in the database that need to be scored every round of prioritization. Some of these projects are legacy projects, or projects that have been in there since the first round of prioritization back in 2009 and have still not been programmed to a tip. And the philosophy here espoused by the SPOT office is that these projects that have remained in the database will affect the scaling component of P4. As you're aware, all the criteria scores and sub-criteria scores will be scaled in prioritization 4.0. So if you have a bad project, that may bring the other scores down throughout the state potentially. So the P4.0 work group developed a recommendation to remove projects based upon a defined set of criteria. And that criteria is listed on this slide here. So any of the projects in the database that do not have the following criteria are proposed for removal. So if a project is not in the last 5 years of the draft transportation improvement program, it will be removed. If a project is not a sibling to a project that's in the draft tip, it will be removed. And what I mean by a sibling project is if there's an A and B section that's currently programmed in the tip and section C is not, section C will be safe because it is a sibling to those first 2 projects in the tip. If a project does not have a completed environmental document, it will be recommended for removal, or if a project does not have any P3.0 local input points assigned, it will be removed. So in order for a project to remain in P4.0 and be rescored, it will need to have one of these 4 criteria. So a summary of what our highway database looks like within CRTPO. So as I said before, we do have 20 new project submittals for P4.0. We have 29 projects that are committed in the first 5 years of the draft tip. These projects do not need to be rescored because they're essentially committed. They're in that section of the tip where they won't need to be rescored. There are 32 projects that are proposed to be rescored in P4.0 because they meet one of those 4 criteria that I mentioned. And again, some of these projects can be removed for additional new project submittals if the MPO and the division agree. And then there are 45 projects that are proposed to be removed based upon the criteria in the previous slide. This is a microcosm of almost 800 projects that are recommended for removal prior to the start of P4.0 throughout the state. And what I'm about to get into here are the projects. I'm going to list the projects that are to be rescored in P4.0, but before I get into that, I realize this is complex. Are there any questions? Okay. So what this slide is showing here is broken out by STI tier the number of projects that are being proposed for being rescored. Overall, there are 32 throughout CRTPO. And I'm going to start with a list of statewide mobility projects, once again, that are proposed for being rescored in P 4.0. I have the project name listed, I have the cost, I have the score from prioritization 3.0, and then the P 4.0 status is the reason why the project is being rescored. So the top 6 projects are in the last 5 years of the TIP, so that's the reason why they're being rescored. There's a project that also has a completed environmental document. That is also going to be rescored in P 4.0. Moving into the regional impact tier, the first 2 slides are the regional impact tier projects within Mecklenburg and Union counties that are being proposed to be rescored in prioritization 4.0. So again, all these projects on this first of 2 pages are being rescored because they are in the second 5 years of the Transportation Improvement Program. Moving on to the second page of regional impact projects in Mecklenburg and Union County that are being proposed to be rescored in P 4.0. The top 2 projects are in the second 5 years of the TIP. There are a couple of projects that were allocated P 3.0 local input points, and then the last 3 projects are siblings to projects that are in the draft TIP. And there is one project in Region F, which is the Iredell County portion of CRTPO, that is being proposed to be rescored. That is a project to improve US 21 and 115 in Troutman. And that is in the second 5 years of the TIP. That's why it's proposed to be rescored in P 4.0. Moving into the division needs tier, these are the projects within Division 10, that's Mecklenburg and Union counties, that are being proposed to be rescored in P 4.0. We have 2 projects, the top 2 that are in the second 5 years of the draft TIP, and then the bottom 3 projects on this page receive P 3.0 local input points, so they are proposed to be rescored in P 4.0. Moving into the second page of Division 10 projects, once again, that are in Mecklenburg and Union counties, that are being proposed to be rescored. In P 4.0, the top project received local input points, and the bottom 2 projects have a completed environmental document. That is why they're going to be rescored in P 4.0. We had one non-highway project that received P 3.0 local input points, and that is a project out of Monroe Airport that will be rescored for P 4.0. And now, this part of the presentation takes us into those projects that are being recommended for removal based upon that defined set of criteria. Before I move any further, are there any questions of those projects that I just went over?
So I just want to make sure I understand. Once they're being rescored, they could be scored higher, they could be scored lower, or they could be removed. Is that correct in that statement?
All of the projects we just reviewed are going to be rescored in P 4.0. There have been some criteria changes. There's the scaling phenomenon. So yes, a project that is being rescored could receive a higher score, could receive a lower score, but it'll definitely be rescored unless the CRTPO or the NCDOT division says, no, we do not want this project rescored.
What do you mean that it goes with the score it has, or it's being removed?
The projects we just reviewed will be scored by NCDOT under this next round of prioritization.
But they'll be rescored, but they won't be removed.
Correct, unless there's a specific project or projects that CRTPO or the division in that previous list wanted removed.
Voted on removed.
Correct.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Well, no, it's supplement the question. Or could one theoretically score low enough to be removed based on score?
No. Regardless, all of those projects we just reviewed will be scored in some form or fashion. Some may score higher, some may score about the same, some may score lower. But there won't be any that DOT would arbitrarily cut out because of a really high or really low score.
But so, to go forward on that, if a project scored really low, it could be replaced with another project. Could we then add,
No, once we're into that scoring phase, we're beyond the point of adding and removing projects. The time to be doing that is within the next couple of months here.
okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, so now we're getting into...
Okay, but all these were based on scores, right?
No, the decision to keep those projects in was because it was either in the last 5 years of the TIP, it had a completed environmental document, it had local input points, or there's a fourth criteria. Yes.
Does that answer your question? It's complicated.
Yeah. I don't even know how to phrase another question, to be honest with you. It just, I mean, this is just one of those things where public perception, I understand each project isn't the same amount of money. I don't go, because Mecklenburg County and Union County together lose 10. Iredell County loses 9. They come off the list.
You're looking at the ones that he's getting ready to talk about, not what was,
I
not
understand.
okay.
I understand all of that.
Okay.
Okay?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's look.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, excuse me.
Heard you make a comment that we or the DOT, and you said or, can pull it or change it. Can the DOT pull one on their own behalf without our approval?
No, there needs to be agreement between CRTPO and the NCDOT division on projects that are to be removed. I misstated that
Okay.
previously.
Okay. All right, let's look at this then.
Okay.
Have more questions.
And just to orientate you, this is the first slide, then I'll go through all the different geographies again, but one nuance to this slide is I have the number of projects to be removed by tier, but I also have the number of those projects that are to be removed that are also fiscally constrained projects in our 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This is significant because the TIP is a subset of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So in theory, those projects that are in the fiscally constrained portion of the MTP that are proposed for removal, we may want to consider using one of our 20 slots to resubmit. Staff, at least, feels that we should continue to look to the MTP and that project list that we already have to submit projects for rounds of prioritization, because there's an element of our MTP that's federally required that we have a fiscal constraint, that we're grounded in reality. That MTP has that element. So that's why you're seeing that here, and I'll continue to note that as we go through these lists that are coming up. So these are the projects in the statewide mobility tier that are recommended for removal. And these are projects throughout CRTPO, so not just one or two counties. On the far right column, you'll note the 2040 MTP score. What that means, if there's a number in there, that means it's in this project is in a fiscally constrained plan. If it says NA, the project was not in our fiscally constrained 2040 MTP. I know I've just in the first two slides thrown a lot of information at you. Before I go any further, any questions before we move forward?
This presentation, is this going to be where we can access it?
Yes, we will upload it to the website. You can also email it out.
Okay.
Moving on to...
Excuse me. So I think it would be good to do both, upload it and mail it to the representatives of CART.
Okay.
Please.
Moving on to the regional impact here. Again, these are lists of projects that are being recommended for removal based upon the criteria that was approved by the P4.0 work group. So these are projects in Mecklenburg and Union counties. And once again, noting the 2040 MTP, there are 3 projects on this first page here that are in our fiscally constrained plan. The projects that have NA in that column are not in our fiscally constrained plan. Moving on to the second page of regional impact projects within Mecklenburg and Union County counties that are being proposed for removal. The top 3 projects on this slide are in our 2040 MTP fiscally constrained plan, and the bottom 2 projects are not. Moving into the Iredell County portion of CRTPO at the regional impact tier. Once again, these are projects that are being recommended for removal before P4.0. There are 2 projects on this list that are in our 2040 fiscally constrained plan, the projects that have the scores on the right-hand side. And this is the second page of regional impact projects proposed for removal prior to P4.0. The bottom project is in our 2040 fiscally constrained MTP. Moving into the division needs tier, this is the list of projects. This is the first 2 pages within Mecklenburg and Union counties, the division needs tier. Those projects that are being proposed for removal based upon the criteria that I shared with you all earlier. There is 1 project on this first page that is in our 2040 fiscally constrained plan. Moving on to page 2 of the projects within Division 10, within the Mecklenburg County and Union County portions that are being proposed for removal. And there are none of these projects are in our fiscally constrained 2040 MTP. Moving on to Division 12, this is the Iredell County portion of the division needs tier. Once again, these are the projects that are being recommended for removal from the spot database before P4.0. There are 2 projects on this list that are in our 2040 MTP fiscally constrained project list. And I'll close with a proposed schedule moving forward with P4.0. Beginning next month, this conversation will start at the staff level, but we'll start looking at those lists in further detail. We already have a meeting scheduled for the TCC to specifically look at those projects that are proposed for being rescored, as well as those projects that are being proposed for removal, with the 20 project submittals in mind. And we have an end date of the August 6th TCC meeting to have recommended lists for the TCC to consider recommending to this group at its August 20th meeting. Also, we'll be looking at the list of new projects, but again, since we have 20 slots, we have 45 projects proposed for removal, it's likely that we'll use all or most of those submittal slots to bring in some of those projects proposed to be taken out. Beginning in November, the spot office will review and score all existing and new projects, and that activity is expected to conclude in March of 2016. And then beginning next summer, there will be the local point allocation process for P4.0 that will begin in April and conclude in September. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question. So, on your point page, I don't know whether you put this, yes. We have the points that we have for the regional includes the divisions, combine the whole CRTPO region. It does not divide up into 10, region 10 and 12.
You're referring to the number of local input points that CRTPO received. Yes, we received 2,500 points for the regional impact and 2,500 for the division needs, and it is not specified as to how we split out those allocations between divisions 10 and 12.
Right. And also on the 20 projects that can be submitted, it's not split out either.
No, it's not. It's up to the MPO to determine that.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Neil, real quick, on the list of items or list of projects that are recommended for removal, if they are ultimately removed, are they gone for good? Where do they go?
We had a discussion about that, and there is a desire. There's obviously so many projects that are being removed. We can't save all of them. I believe the spot office will keep those as archives. So when we get into P 5.0 and that's a priority or we have a slot available, we could submit a project that was previously removed. They should have most of that data available. Obviously, some of the staff in this area may choose to update project information or even the scope of the project to make it more competitive if we have that slot available.
Okay, the second question is, I think I heard you say there's 45-ish that are recommended, and you have 20 slots or 20 new ones. So 25 of the list of recommended will remain on there.
They could, and that's ultimately up to the TCC and MPO to decide how we submit those 20 new projects. But again, since there's that strong link between the 2040 MCP and our TIP, we as staff recommend that we look to those projects that have that designation of being in our fiscally constrained MTP as those projects to resubmit.
Oh, I'm missing something. I'm missing a point here. If there's 45 available to come off, and you only have 20 to go back on, so by default, 25 will remain on there. It's not that they may, they will.
Yeah, there will be 25 projects out of those 45 that will be removed unless
It'll remain. I'm missing.
20 remain.
20 will remain. 25 will be.
Ultimately, 20 is all it is. Okay. I misunderstood. Okay, gotcha.
And I know it's confusing, but I'll add a caveat. If we can identify the projects to be rescored that we no longer want, we'll get X amount of additional new project submittals.
I got you. Okay, so of the 45, more than likely all 45 of them will go, and 20 new ones will probably show up. Probably going to happen. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, just to follow up on Mayor Taylor's question, I've been here a year, so this may be a stupid question that reflects not knowing how projects originate, but either to quote-unquote save a project that's slated for removal or to put a new one of the 20, well, can a jurisdiction originate that action, and how does that happen? Does it go? In other words, does it just start with the TCC, or one of our jurisdictions actually submit to the TCC and this board project for review?
That's absolutely a possibility. If a member jurisdiction or even a citizen wants to have a project considered for P 4.0, that they can make that request known to CRTPO staff. You're right. I mean, a lot of this discussion will originate at transportation staff meetings, will be carried up to TCC, and ultimately these lists will be brought before you to ultimately approve them.
And there is a burden possibly on our boards back at our jurisdiction if we want to do something. There's a burden on them to push it forward also. Not only a burden, but an opportunity if they choose to.
This is one of those cases where the importance of working with your TCC members could be more obvious. I think it's going to be very, very critical for all of you to work with your TCC member as we go through this process. And I think we can, we'll strive to do our best at the July meeting to provide more information on this as well. Perhaps something, maybe we have education sessions before the meetings, perhaps we could do something like that where we can sit down and talk one-on-one about these things. That might be something we can do as well.
Before you start, let me just say, I think that's a good idea, an excellent idea that prior to our July 15th meeting, maybe that if we could have the technical people available and we can come in and ask questions, or have them walk through a little bit, even if you could send your questions ahead of time or your, and no question is stupid. If you could send it to Bob, then we could have the right people here to try to answer your question prior to, maybe about an hour prior to our regular meeting on July 15th.
Well, my question is, how do the dollars come into play? Obviously, there's not an infinite amount of dollars that are out there as it relates to what's chosen for 20. I mean, is that a directive of what you choose or not choose? Because obviously some projects are more expensive than others.
That has to be a consideration, especially now that we've been through one round of prioritization under STI. We have a good idea of what got funded and what didn't. For instance, if we have a $100 million project in the division needs tier, we have a pretty good indication that there just isn't enough money to fund a type of project like that. So we're aware of the upper bounds of the budgets within the regional impact and division needs tier. We're aware of the projects that were competitive in the statewide mobility tier, so we have to be mindful of all those things. And we also have to look to, I know I keep reinforcing this, but the 2040 MTP. There was a requirement that it be fiscally constrained. What I mean by that is it needs to be grounded in the reality of the available funds, funding projections done out to 2040. So those projects that are on that list, it was proven that there were funds to construct those projects between now and 2040.
Other questions or comments?
I-
Yes.
Yeah, and I know we don't want to debate each individual project. Of course, nobody wants any of theirs taken off. But, I mean, we just built a connector road for Cornelius Road as part of our end of the bargain to get the interchange at Cornelius Road. Now, we're being told this is taken off. And then also, I've got to go tell a bunch of people who are already pretty irate about we can't widen the interstate for 20 years, and here on the 2040 plan, we have a chance to get in the queue, because what happened at exit 28 rolled that congestion moved to exit 36. Then we're telling the folks at exit 42 Troutman, hey, watch out, you're next, it's coming. So now we're going to say, instead of planning that we're going to need a wider interstate, 20 years from now, we're going to take that off the list. And then what's going to happen is we're going to come back 20 years from now and say, well, sorry, if y'all on the list, it's going to be 20 years before you get any lanes. I mean, we're at that 20-year mark now. Hey, the time to get it on the list is now if it can't be funded for 2040 plan over 20 years away. It's going to be hard. These things are going to be hard to explain, okay?
Those are all really good points. And one thing I'll add that's particularly complicated about the statewide mobility tier or those projects along 77 is we have that corridor cap to contend with. And a lot of those projects on 77 are hundreds of millions of dollars, so it's challenging to figure out. We could add it back in, but does it really have a chance of making it into a tip? It may in 20 to 30 years, but that's just a very complex issue.
How is local matching or contributions going to be factored into this prioritization? For example, if there's a project that's on that list that was recommended to be removed, but the municipality thinks they really, really need it and they're willing to put up half the money, how does that factor into whether it would stay on the list or not go on the list?
With the local contribution, that applies to after the projects have been submitted. It's immaterial to what we're doing right now, which is basically reducing the number of projects in the database. There was not any specific criteria that said if municipality X contributes X amount of dollars, the project is safe. I mean, the bottom line with the spot office in Raleigh is there's too many projects. They feel like there's a negative impact on the scoring, and that it needs to be removed. It's kind of immaterial to the local contribution issue.
But doesn't that factor in somehow into the STI rankings?
Local contribution does, but it's further down the path. After they finalize the list of projects to be scored, before the scoring process begins, that's the time where they ask for local contributions.
Okay, so this initial phase is totally meaningless.
It just doesn't factor, local contribution doesn't factor into the number of projects in the database.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much for the presentation. Next item is number 10, upcoming agenda items.
I think we got a flavor already, ma'am, but of course we'll talk about the tip at our next meeting. That'll serve as an opportunity for the public to state its opinions on some of the projects or any of the projects in the draft tip. We'll likely return to that on the road repair plan and an issue as well. We will have we'll return to the blue line extension tip amendment issue that David McDonald had mentioned. May also have some discussion about possible changes to the congestion mitigation and quality program that I think are a big issue also would be sort of the ratification of the public comment period as well.
That being the last item, is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor, say aye. I want to thank all of you